Good morning, everybody. It's Gabby from Bridging the Gap. And today I've got with me Debbie Grayson, and she is a pharmacist, and I can't wait to have a conversation with her. But first, let's talk about our herb of the day. So today I'm talking about ginkgo, so ginkgo biloba. And of this, we generally use the leaves. The amazing thing about this herb actually is its multiple actions. So it's really anti-inflammatory and it's antioxidant. So because of the antioxidant effect, it's particularly good at those that are having issues with toxicity, and especially toxicity of the brain. So it's a cognition enhancer. It's also a vasodilator, so it helps to really move the blood to where it's needed. And in that process as well, it starts to break down any fatty deposits. So this one is great for clients that have Alzheimer's, maybe arteriosclerosis, atherosclerosis, anything where there's kind of congestion there. So cerebrovascular disease, maybe deafness, dementia. It's also actually very good for the immune system. So it can have anti-tumor activity, it can boost the immune system, and it really supports the nervous system. So think of this for your clients who perhaps have anxiety or depression or any kind of nerve-related dementia. But this one doesn't really come without risks. So I've chosen this one because it can interact with certain types of drugs, and I'm sure Debbie will perhaps enlighten us with this one. So typically be careful if people have hypersensitivity to ginkgo, but also maybe if they're on certain types of medications as well. So this is one that you would perhaps need to check. And this is why it's great that we're bringing Debbie on board, because actually what she is doing is so specialized. She is a pharmacist and really has put together this amazing course about herb and drug interactions, really. So welcome, Debbie.
Morning. Thanks for having me, Gabby.
You're very welcome. So Debbie, are you actually a registered nutritionist as well as a pharmacist?
Yes, so I completed my diploma 5 years ago now. I'd always decided that I wanted to do pharmacy because medicine was always my interest. I fancied being a doctor but couldn't cut up dead bodies, so I thought that might have been a problem when I got to university. So pharmacy was sort of like it's always the alternate option when people can't get into medicine for some reason. So that seemed a sensible one for me. And really, up until 2008, I'd only really ever considered allopathic medicine as the way to make people get better.
Wow.
A lot of personal issues. I had a spinal injury and was on lots of medication, lots of painkillers, felt like a zombie, felt like I couldn't sort of function in work. And from there, decided to sort of start looking at exercise therapy, and then that sort of led me to nutritional therapy, and then from there it's just sort of grown from there. And I always said that within a year of qualifying as an NT that I was going to stop practicing as a pharmacist. And that hasn't happened, because very much being a pharmacist is what makes me unique and makes me me.
Absolutely.
And I'm known within the area where I work as the pharmacist that knows lots of weird things. That's the polite version.
Love it.
And it's nice that within the pharmacy I can intervene with patients that are maybe struggling with health issues and been given medication, and actually be able to say to them that if you just did this, you maybe wouldn't need any more medication, or we might be able to get that medication reduced.
Does that integrate nicely, or do you find you actually get really frustrated?
No, it integrates really, really nicely. The practice that's where I'm based at work, half the doctors think I'm new age, which is fine, and the other half think I'm brill. So I do get quite a lot of menopausal ladies being sent across, sort of saying that if you don't want to go on HRT, Debbie's your lady, go and have a chat. And if I speak to a customer and sort of say, well, really, you've got this medication, but have they tested you for this, this and this? And they go back and they say, yeah, if that's what Debbie's asked for, we'll do it. Sort of thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's quite nice. So it's it's almost like snippets of nutritional therapy rather than it being sort of like a full clinical setting. But I do, I do get quite a lot of interaction with my customers. And the big one really is people that are coming for advice for heartburn, whereas normally they might just buy a PPI over the counter and then go to the GP and stay on sort of a PPI indefinitely. If I can get them at that point, I can just sort of say, look, you do realise that it's all about your stress levels, your eating habits,
your posture,
your body. Yeah, it's everything. So, it's like, here's some simple things that you can go away and try. And see how you get on. And the number of people that come back and go, those bitters that you told me to get taste disgusting, but they work.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
I love my bitter herbs.
I've gone from feeling like I was single-handedly wiping out the digestion of the village of Parbowl to actually being able to make slight changes and sort of help people.
Oh, that's amazing.
Again, a lot of people, when they try to come off PPIs, tend to just go cold turkey and just stop them straight away, and immediately you're going to get rebound heartburn. And people just, if you're not expecting it and you don't know any different, then people will automatically just assume that that's their body's way of telling them that they really need it, and they go back on it, and then they're just not willing to come off it again. So I do spend quite a lot of time saying, if you're going to do it, we need to prepare you to do it. We need to improve.
Yeah, you can't pull a crutch out of somebody, can you?
No,
you've got to have this crossover.
Yeah, and it's whenever you do it, yes, you are going to suffer, but if we can do all this beforehand, we can minimise that period so that you don't sort of give up and stay on it, because PPIs are by far probably one of the worst medications that...
Have you got figures on how many of the UK population are on PPIs?
Well, just from sort of like my own practice and what I dispense there, I would say PPIs are probably up there as the #1 prescribed medication. We've got sort of like young children.
Oh, I know, there's babies on ranitidine.
Yeah. Well, ranitidine's unavailable at the minute, so they're all now on omeprazole instead, which is even worse. Marginally not as bad if it's a baby, because at least they're not trying to digest full food. But then obviously I've got sort of youngsters that are 10 and 11 that have got heartburn, and when you speak to them, it's like, well, when you eat your meals, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I'm playing on my technology. And it's like, well, that's the whole point. We never used to have children choking like we do now, and it's just because food has just become something that people don't focus on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Those lifestyle habits are actually really important to bring awareness to, aren't they?
Absolutely, because it's easy to just sort of pop a supplement as opposed to a medication, but if you're not changing your habits, then you're not going to get the success that you should do just by popping another supplement.
So are you seeing people within the pharmacy setting only, or do people come and see you for nutrition?
So I do get patients that come and see me at home for nutrition consultations. I do sometimes, my boss is pretty good in that he allows me to use the consultation room during my lunch hour to do a consultation for somebody that I think maybe can't get to my clinic, or isn't in the position for a full consultation. So I do tend to do consultations in my lunchtime, and obviously because I'm in a work premise and it's not my premise, aside to that is where I raise money for the air ambulance. So instead of paying me, they donate to the air ambulance. We have a donation box.
That's amazing, Debbie.
Quite nice. So I do a little, I'm helping people. They feel like they're paying something for it, but then I'm raising money for charity as well. Whereas obviously if they come and see me at home in my clinic, then that's a proper consultation that they pay for. With
your qualification then, are you able to make suggestions as to how to adjust the medication, or are you still working very much with the doctor?
I do still very much need to work with the doctor, but the difference for me is that I can sort of say, look, you need to tell the doctor that you can contemplating changing your medication, tell him that we've been having a chat and that this is my suggested plan, and just make sure that they're in agreement with that. So certainly with a PPI, GPs obviously don't have, they basically, when they want somebody to come off a PPI, they'll just say, oh well, go down a dose for a month and then just stop it. and then it's, you know, and take some Gaviscon for a few days, and it's like, it's not always, because some people, I've had people that have had rebound heartburn for sort of like 6 to 8 weeks. Well, that's an awful long time. And the damage that that's doing to the esophagus and the potential harm that that could cause long term is just, you know, just not good. I even managed to get one of the local GPs off her PPI because she'd never even heard about rebound heartburn, and we were just, she was in to buy some Gaviscon, and we were just sort of chatting, and I'm like, we do realise that you're getting rebound and that you need to do something about it. And she's like, do you know what, I never even knew that that was a thing. It was quite a few years ago, but it's quite a lot more acknowledged now. You know, so that was quite nice, because she was sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I bet. That's brilliant. So you've mentioned working with bitters, perhaps. Are you ever using any of the natural antacid type herbs, like the meadowsweet and fennel?
I'm quite a fan of a product called Acid Soothe, which has got things like marshmallow, gotu kola. It's got quite a few nice herbs in, but maybe I need to sort of touch base with you about some of the herbs that you'd recommend, because I'm in the process of producing a ebook for practitioners on how to support clients that are on PPIs that how they can't come off them.
That's fantastic, I'm sure.
So if you've got some go-to products, that would be fab, and I can sort of include them in my ebook.
Absolutely, because people have varying success with peppermint, and it's not one of the ones I would typically go for, because I do find it can almost cause too much relaxation of the gastrointestinal muscles because of the high volatile oil, and so actually it can cause the sphincters to relax, and it tends to make things worse. But I do know that the standard medical advice is often to use things like peppermint oil in capsules, and I spend time trying to get people off that as well.
I can imagine. I mean, we do have some peppermint oils that are sort of further down in the GI tract that aren't quite as problematic, but certainly just the plain peppermint oil, or even to just do like a peppermint tea, can be quite problematic for some people, can't it?
Yeah. What about the different strains of probiotics? Do you ever talk to people about that in order to support the digestion?
Not specifically, to be fair, because I tend to look more at the things that are going to heal the digestive tract.
It's upper digestion.
It's one of them, isn't it? In an ideal world, you have loads of time to research, and it's sort of, I suppose, I've gotten a little lazy in that I've got my sort of protocol that works, and so I haven't looked outside. But obviously, with producing the ebook, that's on the list of things to do. So
that sounds so exciting, that ebook. And I know that you've brought a course together because you really started to recognize almost like a gap in the market, a need for practitioners. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I actually wrote that course between year 1 and 2 of my nutrition diploma. I was given a week to write it by the lady that wanted me to launch it. And she's like, you've got a week before it has to go into BANT for approval. And I'm like, okay. So it's been running now for about 5 years. And I've always up to now run it face to face. But obviously with the current COVID situation, that's not an option anymore. And to be honest, I'm quite excited about taking it online, because when I run it face to face, I only have about 7 hours to discuss the content of the course. And my joining instructions always advise to have a bottle of wine in the fridge for when you get home, to cope with the brain freeze.
Love it. And that's from the pharmacist.
I know. and then my post-course trip home usually involves a photo of a glass of Prosecco on the train. So that's going to go out of the window now, because what I've done is I've actually split it into individual sessions.
This is more bite-sized and manageable.
Yeah, so it's keeping it a little bit more manageable, because by about 3/4 of the way through, you can see that people are feeling a little bit sort of like rabbit in the headlights, sort of, oh my God, this is great, but it's just so much information to take in one go. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to make it into 4 3-hour sessions, because I'm very keen. It's not a lecture. We don't use PowerPoint. We have a manual that's got quite a lot of information in, and it's got gaps for people to add in the discussions that we have during the course. and it's very, very much a two-way discussion. It's more of a workshop than a lecture. And I'm quite keen that that isn't lost in the online version. So I want to be able to still keep it that people can interrupt me and ask a question verbally. I don't want to be doing sort of typing questions and looking at questions. I very much still want it to feel like a classroom.
So still via Zoom then, but the webinar version?
Zoom, but the webinar version, so that people can obviously, you know, maybe put the hand up to ask a question, but actually be able to interject with questions rather than me going through the subject matter and having an hour at the end to discuss things. I very much still want it to have that two-way conversational style to it. So in doing that, I've increased the delivery time to allow for the technology and doing the discussion, but I've also probably added a good 30% in contact time as well, so that I can discuss some of the things that I don't discuss in great detail in the face-to-face version, so that people have got a little bit more time to sort of assimilate and ask questions.
So what sort of things are you actually covering then?
So we start off by looking at some of the basics of pharmacology, so what the difference is between pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, and what that all is. We spend quite a lot of time at the beginning talking about just what constitutes an interaction. So a lot of people don't realise that it isn't just a case of drug A interacts with supplement A. It could even be as simple as you've increased somebody's gastric transit time if they're prone to constipation. And in doing so, their medication is then no longer in the body for as long as it would normally be. So that could actually change their, you know, their absorption. You know, and you're never going to find that on a interaction website, because it isn't something that you'd naturally think of. So it's very much about sort of looking at it as a whole in the round. So yes, we look at herbs and nutrients that interact with metabolism enzymes, but we also look at changing the physiology of the body and the impact that that has on the requirements for somebody's medication.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, everybody should know this. Why isn't this taught as part of the course?
I think the problem is, because I've rewritten the lecture for CNM, but the difficulty is, when I teach it from a very practical aspect. So it's like, yes, these drugs interact, but if you do this, this and this, you can actually mitigate the risk, you can monitor, you can alter things, you can ask the GP to change the dosage to allow for the difference. Whereas when it's delivered in a classroom setting, it's a bit difficult to do that if you don't know who it is that's going to be delivering the
I've had the same problem. I'm also rewriting lectures, obviously from the herbal side of things, herbs and nutrition. That's what I do. But it's about trying to get that bit across, isn't it? If you don't know who's going to deliver it, and they're trying to type notes for the person delivering it. But if they don't know that.
No, and of course, because of the liability, if I put something in there that's taken out of context, then that can very much have an impact. And one of the things that I do as part of the course is I do have a 3-month post-course mentoring offer. So
that's a really good offer.
As part of the course, that's included. It's not, you know, there's no extra fee for that. It's just naturally there. And the idea of that is to allow practitioners to go through the motions, to work through their cases, to look at the interactions, and then to email it across to me and say, this is what I've got, what do you think? And then we usually just schedule a Zoom chat or a phone call and go through it, and I'll go, yeah, this is great, but you might want to try this or do that. And that's my way of making sure that people still practice safely.
Yes, peace of mind.
The course just sort of sets the scene, but the mentoring enables people to get that confidence up. Because I have practitioners saying, oh, I spend days worrying about recommending supplements, and now I can do it in sort of like half an hour to an hour. And I can see as the time wears on that people are getting more and more confident. Because I support people, you know, as long as they need. I say 3 months, but as long as they're putting the work in, then I don't mind. I'd rather make sure that people are happy. Practicing safely. And I can see there's a nice steady progression that as people sort of work with more and more, you can see that they're getting more confident, they're getting more settled, and they're like, I'm only going to Myvi, you know, if I get something really complex.
That's good.
I'm quite happy. So yeah, it's really good. And I love that side of things. I'm really passionate. One of my pet hates is on the various forums is when somebody says, oh, I've got a patient or client and they're on these medications, and what supplements should I avoid, or what can I give? And there'll always be somebody going on, oh, I never give any supplements when somebody's on medication, I do it all through food. And I'm like, no,
it's about doing it safely, isn't it? But it's certainly possible.
And certainly these groups of patients are the ones that probably need more support rather than less.
Yeah.
And I always use the example of one of my very first clients was a patient from the pharmacy suffering with chronic fatigue. And he'd come to me for a flu jab, and that's a part of my job that I have to do and can't avoid. And as I was doing it, and they have to stay with me a while, and he just sort of out of nowhere just said, well, what do you know about chronic fatigue? So I'm like, well, there's lots of different causes. Sometimes it's a label, sometimes it's not, you know, it could be this, this and this. And he's like, oh, can I come and see you? So I'm like, yeah, fine, come and see me in my clinic. And he was taking a number of medications, but one of them was metformin. And his diet was the typical sort of NHS diet at the time of, you know, low fat spread, lots of, you know, carbohydrates, very little else. So that wasn't obviously helping. But obviously his medication was causing quite a lot of nutritional deficiencies. So we had a chat, and it's like, look, you know, if you change your diet, that's going to make a massive impact. And if we can correct the deficiencies that your medication's causing, then that'll have an impact as well. I got a phone call 3 days later telling me he was cured.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh. And I thought, no, there's probably an element of somebody giving him some hope in there, and that's fine. I'll go with that. But 5 years on, he's still doing really, really well. He tells every doctor that he sees that I cured his chronic fatigue, and he'd had it for 20 years.
That's amazing.
And he's currently 74 and builds houses and rides bikes, and sort of like, he's got more energy than me.
We see this, don't we, with those on statins, and actually we can really identify the fact that they just are not able to produce their coenzyme Q10 and the other deficiencies that it can cause as well. And if that advice was just given at the start, or even get to the root cause, obviously, but, you know, if they're going to be on that medication, if they were given the nutritional support alongside it, there'd be a lot of people who would be saved from suffering.
Absolutely, you know, so that is one of my pet hates, to be fair. I do sort of have to sort of put the keyboard away and think about my reply, because, you know, I get that people are worried and that they're nervous, but, you know, we're doing our clients a disservice if we're not addressing the nutrient deficiencies that the medication's causing, because in the short term we need to be doing that while we improve the terrain and what's going on at a root level, to then maybe reduce that medication use going forwards. You know, so you've got to have that two-pronged attack, otherwise it just isn't going to work.
Yeah, definitely.
If you've not got any energy, anything we suggest just isn't going to work.
What's your opinion of the fact now that, I don't know if you spotted it, but a lot of these companies are now not just doing nutritional supplements, but also combining it with herbs? Because, you know, I believe herbs are actually really powerful. And this is why I'm also developing a course, Bridging the Gap Between Nutrition and Herbs, so that practitioners have an awareness of how herbs can interact in the body. What do you think about the fact that people aren't being given training, yet there's just tons of these supplements on the market?
That it worries me quite a lot, to be fair, not just from a practitioner point of view, because yes, you know, we've a list of practitioners that as nutritional therapists we're allowed to use, but I do still think that we don't fully have a good understanding. I mean, I'd like to think I have a reasonable understanding because my pharmaceutical knowledge gives me the option of researching the herb, and because I understand pharmacology, it's not that different, the pharmacology of a herb to the pharmacology of a drug, although I still acknowledge that I would love to know more. So maybe I'll be waiting to see what you do with anticipation.
There's definitely that element to it, because that's the angle I want to come from.
I never really wanted to do the full 3-year herbal course because I was worried that for me as a pharmacist that I would just be swapping one lot of drugs for another. but I would still like to know more, about the daily.
That's why I did this course. I mean, like you, it was a live course in person and spread out over 2 weekends. But, it's hard, isn't it, for people to access it that way? So like you, I've also brought it online so that we can go through, within an 8-week period, practitioners actually can feel confident at the end in using market formulas in a safe and effective way.
Absolutely. And I think that's really, really important because, people, there's a lot within even the public where if they can see supplements that have got herbs in them, there is this big belief that, oh, it's only a supplement, it's safe. And the conversations that I have in work, I'm a bit like the voice from the gods because I can hear what's going on in the shop. And the girl on the counter, she calls me Google. She's like, let me go and get Google. And I can hear customers sort of saying, oh, can I buy this supplement or whatever? And they'll go, I'll just ask Debbie, and they'll just go, no, you can't have that because, and they're like, and they're sort of like, I just thought that it's fine. It's funny because when they try and say they're not taking any medication, it's like, no, you can't have that, and they're like, how do you know that? It's like, because I know who you are. There are no secrets. It's because I've been there for 18 years, and it's like if I'm talking to somebody, I know what medication they're on without even looking on the computer. It's like, no, you can't have that because, and they're like,
oh my God, you must have an amazing brain. That's quite incredible.
I need to get out more. I used to memorize barcodes when I worked in the supermarket as a student, so I've just got a strange.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. So Debbie, you've always delivered things in person and now you're swapping to online. What are your technological skills like?
Okay, so technology wise, my backup career, believe it or not, was going to be IT. I was quite a computer whiz when I was younger, though I've lost touch a little bit with the movements of technology. So I'm just at the moment learning the sort of nuances of Zoom. I was ever so excited last week that my makeup instructor, I've had lessons from a makeup artist on how not to look so terrible on the screen. I didn't own a piece of makeup, to be fair, so I need to book in for my full lesson. So my makeup this morning is not bad, but it's not how it was or how it should be or how it could be. But I was ever so made up that in a conversation with in a business group last week that I actually found that there's a button on Zoom to autocorrect your appearance.
I did not know that. Tell me about it.
And I was like, in the settings, if you go in the settings under the video settings, there's one that says touch up my appearance for Zoom.
Oh, that is amazing.
How did I not know this existed?
That's incredible. There's me trying to find it now.
So yeah, I am fairly technologically switched on. So for me, it's always been about that getting over looking at myself on screen, because I do think that I don't look particularly good on a computer screen, and I'm sure lots of people feel the same. Hence,
I think a lot of people feel the same. Do you know it's all about the lighting and the angle?
Yeah, I know. I need to get some lights. That's the last thing on my list, is to get some lights to do it. But I've had my professional makeup lesson from a television makeup artist via Zoom, which has made quite a difference. And I think it's a confidence thing, isn't it? So, doing this is my first live, if you like. So having done this, I'm feeling a lot more relaxed. I actually prefer live conversations,
chat, proper conversations,
rather than sort of pre-recording something. Obviously we were chatting, I've done a webinar for the A&P, and I think that artificial just recording it is really hard, whereas if I would probably delivering it live and I could just sort of talk, because it's my subject, so it's like I have no notes, I haven't got anything, it's just sort of like, it's almost like having a chat with a friend over a coffee.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that. I had to record for the Bridging the Gap Facebook group a short intro. Now that intro is, I think, 1 minute 14 seconds. It took me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking, oh, I messed that one up. Had to just keep re-recording it. So I think it's normal, and I reckon that people in the end just get really good at it. Think about the first time you ever had to lecture. You know, you're probably nervous then, and now it's second nature.
This is it. I was laughing yesterday. A friend in a business group was doing a live, and she'd found some mask option in Facebook, and she kept trying to turn it off, and it kept turning into something else. It was absolutely hysterical. But she was like, "Do you know what? It was like a minute and a half of mayhem." But it's like, now that I've done that, anything else is easy. Yeah. So I'm not quite going to go down that route. But I do recommend that you don't use the mask option in Facebook unless you want to have, you know, a viral video for the wrong reason.
Hilarious. So Debbie, how can people find out more about this course?
Okay, so I do have a website where the course is advertised, and that's www.naturalbalancehealth.co.uk.
Balance or balanced?
Balance. No D.
Naturalbalancehealth.co.uk.
Yeah. I also have a Facebook practitioner group called IHE Clinical Support, because I teach the course in conjunction with a company called Integrative Health Education. So we shortened it to IHE to make it less of a mouthful. And that's got quite a large number of people in there now. And what happens is people can go in there and say, I've got this client on this medication, I'm thinking of using these supplements. Is there any problems with that, or can you recommend something else? So there's lots of discussion threads in there about the uses of different sort of medications. So it's quite an active group. There's none of the sort of practice questions in there about, you know, how do I get clients or whatever. It's purely interaction based, apart from my tales of Pharmageddon, just to make it a bit entertaining at the minute, because a lot of practitioners aren't practicing. So you can find out all about my customer who dropped his trolleys in the middle of the shop to show me the rash on his back cheeks. There's never a dull moment. We're obviously not using our consultation room at the minute, so I was like, you know, I can have a look at your rash, and I didn't ask him. Schoolboy error, didn't ask him where the rash was, and he's like, that's okay, I'll show you here. So we stood in the middle of the shop. We've got a complete glass front with a walkway between all the other shops in the row, so it's quite a busy thoroughfare, and he literally just dropped his trousers and his underpants in the middle of the shop and showed me his bum cheeks.
That's just so funny.
He was just in no rush to cover himself back up.
Love it.
That's been the highlight.
I don't care.
They don't. It's not the first time I've had something, you know, similar.
Same here, but it's the guys. They're just not bothered.
Yeah, he was just not bothered, and all I could do was the staff sniggering at the back, because we've got CCTV, so they could see it all.
Man,
it's a good job. If I wasn't on the, I sit on the disciplinary panel for the Pharmaceutical Council, so I do have to be professional at all times. So fortunately, I haven't taken the snippets of CCTV for future use. But we've nicknamed the pharmacy at the minute Pharmageddon.
I love it,
because it has just been, you know,
it must have been crazy over the last 8 weeks.
Yeah, absolute nightmare. But luckily my staff and I, we do have quite a sense of humour, and the majority of our customers are really, really good. But there's lots to make us laugh, and there's lots to make us cry. But yeah. So there's tales in there at the minute, but it's not normally that flippant.
You said it's called IHE
Clinical Support.
Clinical Support. That's the Facebook group. So how often are your courses running?
So it's a bit of a complicated system that I'm running, because what I'm trying to do is, a lot of people were asking me whether they could access the recordings after the course, because it's more of a discussion-based workshop. A bit concerned that they will lose something in the translation of people just watching a recording without having that ability to interact and ask questions live. So what I've actually done is I've got a rolling program. So the first course is on the 22nd of June, and I've got the Monday, the Wednesday, the Saturday, and the following Monday in a combination of morning sessions and afternoon sessions, and all those for that fortnight are all going to be session 1. And then in the next 2-week block, it's going to be session 2. So what I've said is when you book your place, the 4 different sessions appear on my website and you pick your preferred session.
That's a really good idea.
But given, obviously, that it's, you know, a bit chaotic at the minute and people are homeschooling and nobody knows if they're coming or going, I've said, although you're booking a specific session, you're more than welcome to join a different session as opposed to the one that you've booked on, to allow people to pick and choose. And also, if somebody's a learner that needs to do something more than once, I'm quite happy for them to sit in on another session in that block, but I just ask that they mute themselves so that they're not taking over the discussion from those that haven't yet done it for the first time. So if somebody wanted to do all 4 sessions, then if that's what they want, that's absolutely fine.
What's the charge for the 4 sessions?
So the charge for the 4 sessions is £120, and that obviously includes the post-course mentoring as well. So most people tell
really
me that's a pretty good price. Yeah, it is.
12 hours of work?
12 hours, yeah. And we do some case study work and things. So depending on how the timing goes, we'll either do that as part of the course or do it post-course and get them to sort of email them back in. And I've got the answers if people want to see what my take on it would be.
I love it. You're going to be busy these next few weeks then.
I think we're up to about 40 at the minute over the 4 sessions. The Saturday one's looking like a nice sort of quiet session. There's 2 people in that one at the minute. But that's fine, because obviously if people are swapping around and retaking, then that's not a problem. And I'm quite happy. I've asked that people do them in order. So they have to do 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So if somebody misses a block for some reason, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to automatically put them onto the next course. And my plan is to just keep running it on an 8-week cycle. So they won't be waiting long to get on and to keep it. So I'm hoping that'll mean that it will fit in with most people.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get, you can get all these practitioners trained up. I think what you're offering is absolutely vital, and it should be something that's a requirement. Yeah,
I think it's that whole different practical slant, I think, and being able to sort of look at things in a more practical way that you don't get when you're studying. And to be fair, when you're studying, all you're really focused on is passing the course.
Yeah.
So you often don't start learning until you've qualified and the pressure's off.
Yeah, that's so true. That's when your learning begins.
It absolutely is. And that's my reason for trying to keep the cost where it is. I know I could probably charge, hundreds of pounds for the amount of value that they get as part of the course. But then I'm passionate that people have the knowledge. And that's my driver, rather than, obviously we all need to make money, but my driver is more that there are practitioners out there that are, suitably trained and confident.
Yeah, I love that structure that you've got. I think that works really well, really doable and really personable. I think that's really important in all of this.
Yeah, and I'm really keen that it doesn't lose that face-to-face element that it had, because that's always been my driver for not taking it online.
Yeah.
But I'm actually quite excited now. I suspect I probably won't go back to doing it face-to-face, because I don't think I could deliver it face-to-face over 2 days and make it cost-effective. So
yeah. So Debbie, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners before we say goodbye?
No, I don't think so. No, I think I've probably bored them for long enough now.
It's been fascinating. It's been enlightening, and I can't wait to, hear more about this journey. And it'd be great if we could speak again, maybe 6 months from now, and find out how the course has been running, but also maybe practitioners' experience of, clients that they've had where they've been able to guide them through this whole pharmacology jungle that's been because of you. That'd be amazing.
That'd be great. Thanks very much for having me, Gabby.
Thanks, Debbie. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.